Hi, I'm Matt Covell, and this is going to be a how-to on daily scrums. So, a little bit of backstory on my team. The way we originally had set up, or a tech startup, is we would have a once-a-week meeting, and that was where everything was, all the dirty laundry was aired out. So it was where people talked about their successes, their accomplishments, what they'd been working on, what challenges they'd had, and that type of meeting is great. It's completely necessary. But when you have a meeting on Sunday and you have a group of people who are doing this tech startup in their off hours, it tends to end up working really hard the first few days or working really hard the last few days before the meeting, but not so much in between. So we moved to twice a week meeting schedule, meeting on Sunday nights and Wednesday nights. And this was much better because there was more accountability, and like generally people would prepare enough to do the Wednesday meeting and then continue preparing to the Sunday meeting. But I, I encountered problems when I came onto the team with this because this was the only time where you really had people together and intelligent discussion on the product. And in between, there were issues that were happening that weren't getting solved. So I had convinced. I had researched Scrum methodology. I had talked to Sammy, the CEO, and I said, well, what we really need to do is we need to set up a daily Scrum. And there was initially a lot of resistance because nobody likes too many meetings. And having a meeting once a day, for us, we do them 6 days a week. That's a lot of meetings. But the advantage to the daily Scrum is that it's set up to be as efficient as possible. So it's time boxed to 15 minutes. You need to cut it off at that point. It needs to be 15 minutes and no more. A little bit about the daily scrum is that it's a time for people to report their accomplishments and air any problems that they're having or anything preventing them from succeeding. That's really your job as a project manager, is to enable people to succeed and give them the tools that they need to do that. So how we run our daily scrums is everybody is responsible for giving a report, and in that report they have to answer 3 questions in a row, and they are: what have you done since the last meeting? This is what you've worked on story wise. What feature you've been coding? Nothing more. It's not a place to talk about, oh, I did this, but I had this problem, so I switched over and I started working on this bit of logic, and then I was able to go back to the first thing. No, we don't want to hear everything you did. We want to hear exactly what technical story you worked on, nothing more, nothing less. The next is, what will you do before the next meeting? So, what stories are you going to be working on? What features are you going to be working on? This is good for project managers because you're able to say, okay, I feel like this person is lowballing it. Let's find out if there's something preventing them from working on something more. If they only say they're going to work 2 hours, but you know that this person usually works 4 hours a day, then you know you've got a problem. The third question is, are there any problems, technical or logistical, preventing you from success? Technical problem would be, an example would be, uh, I can't figure out this logic to code this feature. How can I do this? And so then the team either moves on after the meeting or moves into a technical portion of the meeting. But I tend to save that for after everyone has given their report. So usually if something comes to light where we need a senior dev to talk to a junior dev about it, usually I put that aside, wait until everyone's done reporting, and then give everyone the option of leaving the meeting, because again, it needs to be time boxed to 15 minutes or else people are going to feel like they're wasting their time. The other thing is the logistical problem. So a logistical problem would be, I need to work on this section of code, but it's tied up with Miguel. And so what that does is it brings to light, okay, maybe Miguel's working on a piece of code, and he's kind of not giving it his full attention, but he's also using that resource. Well, if there's someone else that's free to take that story on, that's the beauty of agile development, is that they can pick up where the other person left off. Everybody is trained enough to and knows enough of what's going on through sprint planning, through knowledge of the project, to pick up where someone left off. So that really comes down to how you organize your stories and how you do your development. Some notes. One thing we do is we take notes on this. So I have a note where a bullet for each person under each of those questions, so there's accountability. That's the big thing, is if someone says they're going to do something before the next meeting, but then the only place it exists is the scrum meeting from the day before, then it doesn't even matter if you worked on what you said you were going to do, or it doesn't matter how much you got accomplished, because there's no metric to gauge a person's success. um, I also like to have notes for my personal things. So if I'm checking up with people, it's, hey, how's it coming on this story? What are your issues with this? So I always have this on display. So we use GoToMeeting since none of us are co-located, and I share my screen and share the bullet point list of the notes. And then after each meeting is done, I post it on our server so that everyone has a place to download and see, okay, this is what I said I was going to do. If maybe they forget, because I mean, it's really easy when you're in a meeting to say, oh, I'm going to work on this feature, this feature, this feature. Then later on, you finish the first two, and you're like, you can't even remember because there's so many stories set up in your track, whatever project management tool you're using. So that's a little bit about how to do the daily scrum. If you have any problems or questions, feel free to email me. My email is mjcovell@gmail.com, or you can make a post on my blog, mattcovell.com. Thank you very much.